Well, I am, first of all, saying hello to all my lovely listeners on the Heart of Show Business. I have such a special guest with me today. Not only I consider him a friend, though we just basically met, but it was one of those love at first sight in a platonic way. Jonathan Silverman, whom I'm also co-producing a movie called Salvation Christmas. But there's so much to say about like how life comes full circle. Before I tell you his bio, because it's very extensive and you may have to go to an IMDb to just get the full scope of his credits, but I will tell you a little bit of who he is. But before I even go there, life is very, very funny. I believe that our life is defined by movies and songs. I don't know about you, Jonathan, but I can remember certain movies as defining chapters of my life. And interesting enough, Weekend at Bernie's, that was basically like made you blow up as an actor, was a defining movie for my own personal life, because when I first started in the business, I was hired to work as a translator for an Italian distributor. And I did my first American film market, I think it was like 1988, 1989. And the first movie he wanted to buy was called Weekend at Bernie's. And he says, you want to come to the screening with me? So basically, I give you the credit, Jonathan Silverman, for being the person that defined my movie business career in some way or the
Now,
other.
would that be the credit or the blame?
Both.
Okay,
I'll
all
give
right.
you both.
Well, I'm
You
honored.
took,
I'm very honored.
yeah,
And
you took me down on the road to hell and back and the road to paradise.
whatever it is that brings us together, and here we are 30 some odd years later, and you're
Yeah.
in the south of France.
And I mean, and I get to meet you, and it was just like, yeah. So I mean, the same thing happened with Don Most, who I had on my show, Happy Days, of course.
Sure.
And when I was a kid, I used to watch Happy Days, and I used to say, one day I'm going to move to America.
Mm,
I was like 14 years old, and full circle, I get to have him on my podcast. So this is a very special episode for me, and I'm going to stop rambling and let you all know who the heck Jonathan Silverman is. I'm sure you already know who he is, but I mean, obviously,
I'm a little curious. Who am I?
who are you?
Who am I?
You're a super funny guy in life and
Mm,
outside. Well, I guess I got you on good days.
yeah.
Must be, because you're so smart, and which is interesting because, well, not to say they're not actors are not smart, but they're eclectic people. Let's put it this way, and you're definitely
Good
one of the
description.
smart ones, right? And he comes from a long-standing lineage of rabbis, which is interesting. We're going to talk about that. But of course, you'll know him as the comedic guy who was running around with a corpse on Weekend at Bernie's. That was his call to fame. But from that, he has worked with amazing people, you people. He's worked on Death Becomes Her. Hello, Meryl Streep. He worked on Stealing Love, which I believe was with Jodie Foster. Love that movie, right? Coming of age. I think it was Jodie Foster. Hopefully
Yes, Jodie
okay,
Foster. Yeah,
good.
Stealing Home, but there was Love
Stealing
Stolen
Home.
too. But yeah, Stealing Home was the name of it. Yeah.
Stealing Home. Stealing Roses is my movie. What the heck
Yeah,
am I
right.
talking
Yeah.
about?
We
No,
shouldn't be stealing anything.
we should. And
Yeah.
oddly enough, you're stealing things in Salvation Christmas, but that's another
That's
story. So
right.
we know each other. And then he's done so many romantic movies, and he's been on Broadway. I mean, he's done dramatic roles. He's married to a Canadian who's also an actress, famous on her own right. They get to work together. They've been working together on a few series. He's also a producer. He's directed a couple of movies. I mean, this guy is like Hollywood.
That's me, Mr. Hollywood, here in the heart of show business. See what I did? I tied it all into your title.
I love that. I love that. We're going to have to start putting the music. You're going to have to put on your top hat and start like dancing
I'll
around
do a
and
song and
sing.
dance for you. You got a piano and all of my wife's Emmy Awards. So let's do this.
I love this. This is so great. Now, welcome to my show. And I have to say, again, I'm super flattered. And I really know life is really bizarre, how things come full circle. And how does a kid from a very strict religious family go to his parents and go, Mom, Dad, I want to be an actor and I also want to be funny at it? Like, do they just like start slapping you around, or did they say, yes, go do it, be broke and struggle
Yeah,
and make it?
I didn't really tell them that I was going to be pursuing this. They knew I wasn't going to follow in the family footsteps. I knew from a very early age that I wouldn't be continuing the tradition of being a religious leader in the community. Probably from the age of 5, I knew this wasn't for me. Now, I loved and I was fascinating watching my dad. I still have the pleasure of watching my dad, speak. I think he's one of the most influential and brilliant speakers I've ever come across. So in a weird way, I caught the acting bug, the performing bug, from watching my dad up there on the pulpit give his sermons. He wasn't so much a fire and brimstone kind of rabbi. His sermons were always full of joy and thought and comedy and current events, and he would make people laugh and he would make people cry. And subconsciously, I think I studied, and I got involved in theater in our high school here in Los Angeles, just as an elective, just as something to do. I was too skinny. I tried out for the football team. I made the football team, but I kept getting, beaten up because I was just so little and tiny. And it was my guidance counselor who said, "You might want to shift gears. Have you ever thought about theater?" And I was all right. And I loved the theater department. It was a very influential and fascinating group of people. This being Southern California, some of my classmates turned out to be David Schwimmer and Nicolas Cage. He was Nick Coppola back then. Lenny Kravitz. I was never given much to do in any of our school plays. I was in Fiddler on the Roof. I was the third Russian villager on the left, and in West Side Story, I was the sixth Puerto Rican shark on the right. But I finally got cast in a meaty role, in a speaking role anyway, in our production of Midsummer Night's Dream. They gave me the role of Puck, and at this performance, I suppose one of my classmates was a commercial actress, an occasional, television actress. But her commercial agent was in attendance. This fellow came up to me after the performance and said, "I think you've got talent, kid. Here's my card. Give me a call and come to our agency and let's talk." I thought someone was playing a joke, and he turned out to be legitimate and lovely. And he signed me on, and I probably went on a Taco Bell commercial, which I obviously didn't book, but he did set me up on an audition for a play, a Neil Simon play that had just opened on Broadway, starring Matthew Broderick, called Brighton Beach Memoirs. And Matthew just won the Tony Award, and he was about to become a major movie star, and they were looking for his replacement. And they couldn't find the actor in New York, so they started to audition people in Los Angeles. It was a series of auditions over the course of the summer, from my junior year of high school to my senior year of high school. So I was still 17 years old, turning 18, and I got the part. And I moved to New York on my own, and I did this play both on Broadway and around the country, and the movie of this piece, Bright Beach Memoirs, for about 2 years of my life. And so I was sort of thrust onto the Broadway stage and into a leading role in a Universal film. And at that point, I think I let my parents know, "Hey guys, I'm going to try this. Okay, I'm already doing okay, and I'm making some money. So I have your blessing, right?" So at that point, they were not worried that I was going to be, poor and waiting tables. And I think if I ever got to that point of struggling, I probably would have backed off and sold shoes for a living or something. But so far so good.
Wow.
That was a long answer to a simple question.
No,
I'm sorry.
I love this. Well, I'm Italian, so we tend to talk a lot. We can tell like a story of like a minute into 10. So
Right.
don't worry
Okay.
about it.
All
You're
right.
like,
You could cut this out.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna edit. Are you kidding me? This is so interesting. But so leaning to something like Weekend at Bernie's, right? Which is obviously not an incredibly morally right movie. I mean, it's
It's
kind
pretty
of
dark.
dark.
Yeah.
It's a little dark, and you know, needless to say, back in those days, you catapult yourself into stardom, as so many of the great actors that came from the movies from the 80s. And then I'm sure there were like women throwing themselves at you
Oh, still to this day.
still to this day. In fact,
Sure.
my wife is like beating them up with a stick and everything. They're like, stalking you outside of your house. Who knows? But how do you did that go over to your head? I mean, did you actually thinking, hey, I'm like some hot stuff right now. Like I can just like get
No,
anything I want.
I think growing up in Southern California was quite valuable, because I saw, not necessarily firsthand in terms of my contemporaries and my friends, but I certainly went to school with a lot of children of celebrities. You couldn't help it. I mean, that's the where we live and function. Every third person is famous here in Los Angeles. So I saw the pitfalls, and I saw the people who were handling it correctly, and I saw the people who weren't. And not that I ever thought I would be in a similar position, but it just taught me that it really doesn't matter. And I think those actors and people in this business who I've gravitated to are those who are humble and kind, and don't think all that much of themselves, or put themselves above anyone else in any other line of work. So that was a valuable lesson. So when I became a working actor and had some success, it never even occurred to me that I need to be put on any sort of pedestal or treated differently. I think it also helped that I began my professional career on stage, doing 8 shows a week on Broadway, which is just the top. I mean, I started at the top, which also makes a lot of my actor friends jealous. It's like, oh, okay, I was working at the Cheesecake Factory for 2 years just to put myself through school, and you're 18 years old and starring in a Broadway play. But they don't give you anything. They don't there's not like a craft service table when you're doing a Broadway show, and no one's there putting on your makeup, and you're just fighting and getting it done, and working your tail off for pennies. So that was certainly a helpful start, as opposed to being thrust in a starring role in a television series or something like that as a teenager.
Absolutely. And I think actually being in the theater helps you build a lot of confidence as well for yourself as an actor. I had Blair Underwood on my show, and he's
I
also,
saw that episode. That was a great episode, and he's one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
oh, he is one of the nicest. Thank you for listening. And as you heard, for him, it was the same thing. He was like, listen, in theater, you don't get to go, well, we'll fix this in post, or, can there be like a take two? So you obviously are going to get to see in people's faces whether
Yeah,
you're doing something right and you're doing something wrong. And you're going to have
right.
to keep that confidence and
For
belief in
sure.
yourself and your delivery, without having to worry about it. And then, it's interesting because we're talking about stardom in the 80s and the 90s. We didn't have social media back then. So now
Thank
it's
God, I
like,
would not have survived those decades if there was social media and cell phones and camera phones. Would have not have survived. So I'm so grateful I started when I did.
I am so grateful too, because I mean, now there actually people go, oh, let me get on social media. Let me show something about myself and about my life. And
Mm.
then, nobody really values privacy anymore. And, I know you're married and you're a dad to a beautiful, beautiful little girl. And how do you, I mean, obviously she's stunning, but look at her parents. Had
Well, look at her mom.
people look at
Thank
her
God she
mom.
looks like her mom.
I mean, well, yeah, but you both are beautiful. So, and you're a beautiful couple too, which is what I love, and I know the story of how you both met, but we're not going to say that on
Yeah,
this
okay,
podcast
thanks.
because maybe Jennifer may not want to the story. She told me the whole story of how the two of you met, but I'm sure you're getting approached by people with your own daughter. I think she was already in your wife's show,
Yep.
right? She
She
played.
plays the young version of Jen, very reluctantly. This was not our idea. We allowed her to help out. It was an emergency. But yes, Jen is starring on a wonderful new show. We just completed season 2. It's called Moonshine, made for CBC and E1, the same fine folks who gave the world Schitt's Creek. So we're hoping we can have like just 3% of their success. But yes, EJ, our daughter's named Ella Jack. We named her Jack after my wife's dad who passed away, and so we call her EJ. But EJ plays the young version of Jen's character in these flashback moments of Moonshine. And she's terrific. She's so good. We were so worried for her, and she's like, "I got this. Come on." She
You
nailed it.
got this. But now what happens when she says mom and dad when she grows up? I want to be an actor or an
I don't know.
actress,
I really
whatever.
don't know. I mean, I certainly God, I'm not a strict parent. I don't really have too many ground rules. I just want her to be a nice person, first and foremost. If she wants to pursue this, I'm only hoping I could delay it until she's a bit older, 15, 16, 17 years old. I would hate for her to have to know what constant competition and disappointment are all about when she's 7 years old, and have to say, I'm in line to get this, Diet Coke commercial. I just I just hope that doesn't happen. But we'll see. I'm a big believer in fate. So hopefully she'll be, a scientist and go to Yale University and solve all the world's problems.
Or she might become the next Angelina Jolie. You never know, But I do understand what you're saying about the pressure with, especially today with social media, there's so much comparison. I mean, when you're an actor back in the day, so as you are a director, you go for audition and you're hearing, oh, did I get the part? You're not going to have somebody posting on social media boasting about it or constantly
Right,
people saying,
right,
oh, I got a job, I got cast in this. And it's like causing like you, I didn't get any work this year. You don't get
right,
that. The only thing is you go into your audition, you do your thing, and then you hear back from the casting director, you don't,
right.
right? So did you have to, because obviously you've had such a long career and you've been doing this for so long. Are you getting to the point right now where you or other hugely talented actors are being passed on because they're not, part of my French, social media whores?
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
I
I don't think I personally fall into that category, being, someone in my 50s and someone who, just has a long list of stuff that anyone could just look at and say, oh yeah, this is who we want or we don't want. Um, Although I do remember doing a series that I loved doing, but the network, this is maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, the network said, it was even in our contract, that we had to do a certain amount of social media. And when the show premiered, we all had to gather at the studio. And I had no idea. I had never been on Twitter. I'd never looked at Twitter. And I mean, I'm not even a good, thumb typer person. And I was, trying to watch the show, and I even directed an episode of this thing. And I'm trying to like make witty comments. So it's a foreign world to me altogether. But I do remember it was actually that same show. I was cast early on in the project, but we were looking for one of the young leads. And they said, okay, here's an actor that we're going to look at, but here's another actor, and he's got 1 million followers. And they were like, 1 million followers? But we all kind of thought, but geez, the other actor, has so much more depth and potential, and he can handle comedy. But yeah, but he's got over 1 million followers. So it was very eye opening to see that that's actually something that's looked upon. I also worked several times with a producer, very successful movie producer, who scans the IMDb
Oh,
rankings. I'm sure there's
star
a better word
meter,
for
the
it.
star
The meter,
meter.
star meter.
Yeah.
I mean, you could look at it today and see who's in the top 10, and there's people you've never even heard of, nor would want to work with. But this gentleman was like, John, she's number 72. You got to hire her. Oh, she's number 16. She's got the part. I'm like, but. So it's very bizarre. It's very, if somebody would have told you that 20 years ago, you would have gone, okay, what drugs did you just take? That's how you're gonna, cast a project. But things have changed. I think things are shifting a bit. There's a number of phenomenal actors who don't do it at all and have no desire to do it, and no one's not voting for them for awards because they don't post the right thing. So hopefully this will sort of not die down, but just sort of find its place, and let people with talent
Yes,
do their
God,
art. Yeah.
from your mouth to God's ears, Jonathan. Because sometimes I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I was looking at Instagram and I was looking at somebody like Jonathan. No, wait, no, it wasn't. No, actually, it was Nicole Kidman. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, Nicole Kidman. She had something like at the time 400,000 followers, and you go and look at like Kim Kardashian, and she has more followers than
Right.
the president
Right.
of the United States, and you're going, what is wrong with this picture?
Right.
There's like something wrong with this picture. I mean, here you are, I'm sure, back in the day, and even today, when you're being pitched a project, they're going to say, hey, you're going to be starring opposite Meryl Streep, or you're going to be working with Jodie Foster, or you're going to be working with this XYZ director or this XYZ writer. I would think that's how you choose your scripts or your
Sure.
projects, right?
Sure.
I mean, who have you worked with? Because obviously you work with so many great people. And I don't want you to do like preferences, but I am dying to know who was like the nicest person on set that you work with to date of like the celebrity category,
Um,
A-listers.
I've got two, and I worked with both of them early on, and to say I was a fan of their work would be such an understatement. I worshipped their work, and the fact that they were such giving, generous, kind human beings, co-stars, colleagues. I watched the way they treated people. Okay, I'm not going to just lead up to it. My two favorite people I've ever worked with, Jack Lemmon, uh, just one of the finest actors of the English language, stage, screen, television. I got to work with him two times. I played his son in an HBO movie, and I played his son-in-law in a Neil Simon movie, the sequel to the very famous Odd Couple. And then John Lithgow, who is just one of my all-time just favorite humans. I did an HBO movie with him as well, maybe my third or fourth job, where we played, I don't want to say arch enemies, but rivals. And wow, just such an experience working with such a kind, generous soul whose work is just mind-bogglingly brilliant. And those would be the two that just floored me. Granted, I could go through a list of 100 people who I admire and pinch myself that I got to work with, that I get to work with, that I continue to get to work with. But those would be the two that instantly stand out.
Those are really interesting choices. I would have thought you would have said Meryl Streep. But then
Well,
again,
yes, of
not
course,
cheap,
of course,
but then it's different, I guess,
right.
and
Yeah, I think oh my
probably
God,
said
working with
otherwise.
her, and I only worked 3 days on that movie, but most of my
Uh,
stuff was all with her. Most of it was cut out of the movie, but
oh,
having 3 days of my life getting to play with her, ah, amazing. I heard a very funny story just yesterday, I guess, as she's doing publicity for her new movie. Don't look up. Is that the name of it?
yeah,
Don't
don't
look.
look now or don't
Don't
look
look
up.
now.
One of
Don't look
those
up.
with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and apparently, as she would come to set or for a photo shoot, a gathering of the whole cast, Jonah Hill and the other cast members would say, "Here comes the goat. Here's the goat." And she didn't know that meant the greatest of all times. She thought they were making fun of her, saying, "Yes, I know I'm an old goat. Just tell me where to stand." God bless her. Yeah,
But,
of course, she's everyone's favorite. And
of course.
I couldn't even speak the first scene I shot with her, but then she was so complimentary and laughing at what I was doing and enjoying and playing and improvising. So yeah, that was of course a treat.
I mean, I would just like bow down, and I think it's really exciting in today's world to be able to honor the actors and actresses and filmmakers who have basically defined cinema as we
Mm,
know it. At the same time, I'm very excited and I'm curious to see, because obviously you're working with a lot of new filmmakers, emerging filmmakers. You're a director yourself now. Um, what what makes you say yes to a project? Because everybody says, is it just really about the script or does it go beyond that?
if I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I'm offered something, which is always a blessing, I have no problem fighting for a role. I actually love the audition process and the learning experience on both ends, especially if you're being directed by the director and the other filmmakers, and you get to sort of taste what it might be like should the job come through. But if I'm in a position where I'm flat out offered a project, First and foremost, it's the script, it's the words, it's you know the boundaries of how you're going to be able to play, and the various conditions and the locations and I don't want to say the budget, but because I don't really care about how much money I'm making, but I do care about how much is available to make everybody look good and have a project that's worthy. But if I am ever in a position to be offered something, I always try and have a conversation, even if it's on the phone, with a director, especially if it's a director I don't know. I'm oftentimes presented opportunities with people I've already worked with, and people I know socially. So I'm certainly not going to test them, but to a complete stranger, and I want them to know about me. And I want us both to know what we're in for, as an actor to a filmmaker. So that's certainly a good test. I don't think I've ever flat out walked away from a job from a conversation I've had, whether it's a coffee meeting or now on Zoom or a cell phone. But it certainly gives me a better idea of what I'm about to get into, because you never know. I mean, you could have such lofty goals and aspirations that this experience is going to be fantastic, and the director, he or she, is going to just shape and create this magnificent piece of art, or it could could be the exact opposite and a complete nightmare. But you don't know until you're actually doing it, and then again, you could be doing it and it could feel like a nightmare and it's beautiful, or you could be having the most exciting creative time ever and it's a pile of shit. So you just never know. You just got to keep stepping up to the plate and swinging and give it a shot.
I love that answer. And I think it's interesting because there are some actors, and I'm curious to see, because obviously you could have a great script and you still don't connect to the part. There is an actor, a well-known actor that I know, I'm not going to name names, but he usually looks at a script and he looks at scenes or characters that he's never played before. So he will look at something, he doesn't even care what the story is about, he doesn't care about the supporting role, he cares about his part. And he goes, oh, I've never like swung from a building like on a thing. I've never done that. I'll say yes because of that. I want to experience that. So you have done so many movies. You've been comedic, you've been dramatic, you have been horrific, not as an actor, but like in scary movies.
I can give you a couple of examples, but all right.
No, you've been like in, thrillers and like, do you choose, granted, you have to have a good script, but when do you go and say, yes, this is me, this is Jonathan, and I can really get into this role and play the heck out of it?
I think any performer would relish the opportunity to do something different and challenging. There's certainly been times where I've read something, I've been asked to do something, and I just sort of back off saying, oh God, I don't know if I'm the right person to play this role. And I just make a list. And then the director or producer would, kind of softly convince me, but you are, because you possess this quality and no one's really seen that, but I know you have this in real life and I'm going to exploit that, and here's the challenge, and are you willing to jump in with me? So that's very exciting. There have been times, and this is mostly like smaller stuff, like an episode or two of a TV show that I might be offered, and I'll read it and say, in the first scene, my grandchildren come up to me and I'm like, okay, I just don't think I can play a grandpa at this stage of my life. I'm 55, so I guess biologically I could, but I just don't want someone to laugh at the screen going, what the hell are we watching? Why is Silverman hanging around with his 18-year-old grandson? None of this is making any sense. So I've talked my way out of those types of situations that I just know I'm so wrong for. But at the same time, I love a challenge. Oh my God, I get to be a cop and I get to, chase the bad guys and anytime I get to, do something that's so different from who I am. It really.
It's Ring.
It's Maeve.
Oh, the fans are at the door. No.
Do you want me to pause this? Because I know he's going to ring again.
Yes,
you can do that? Okay, I will be right back. Sorry.
Don't worry. So as we got interrupted because he just got delivered his Emmy, I
Yes.
wish, but why not? We got to put it out in the universe. Going back to parts and actors, this is an interesting conversation because this is what I tell producers many times. They always go say they have a comedy, they're going to go to every comedic actor. They have a thriller, they're going to go to every thriller actor. And I'm thinking, people, you got to think outside of the box.
Right.
An actor wants to act. I mean, you look at people like Adam Sandler, right? Comedy actor, then he goes and does Punch Drunk Love and gets an Oscar nomination for it. Same thing, Jim Carrey, the man
Sure.
who did the moon, whatever, and he's like Jim Carrey, Pet Detective.
Right.
So you as Jonathan, obviously, I'm sure many people are coming to you for the family movie, the doggy movies, the Roman Man's movies, and all of that, because of course that's something that you are mostly known for. Is there a role, a dream role that you think, oh my God, if that came to me, something, a genre, I would be all over this as a director, as a producer, as an actor, as a combination of all?
It's a great question, and I wish I had that. I think early on in my career, I had, whether it was just a script I read or a project that I knew was happening or a play that was being cast, that I would just put my heart into, in terms of an audition or just trying to get into the room to have an audition. And I think as a defense mechanism, after being disappointed time and time again and not knowing how to balance the, just acceptance and rejection and not letting the highs get too high and the lows get too low, I think somewhere along the way, maybe by the time I hit 25 or 30, I just kind of stopped having the dream part or the dream project, and I just sort of take it day by day or season by season. And I think it was John Lithgow, who I mentioned earlier, who gave me some advice. He said, don't ever get too hot and don't ever get too cold. Just kind of stay lukewarm, and you're going to have a lovely, lovely career. And so far, so good. I've never stopped working, and sometimes I'm doing projects that I'm just crazy about, and sometimes I'm doing projects that are just like, this is paying the mortgage. Still figure out a way to have a tremendous amount of fun and find my creativity in it. But yeah, I just kind of go gig by gig and just try and do the best work I can and enjoy it and make people around me happy as well. That's the best wisdom I have.
I am so loving your honest answer because I think that there's so many people who think, oh, an actor or an actress or a director, all they dream about is Oscars, Emmys, which of course
Right.
we all want them. I want them too. I have an Oscar like on my phone, like as a screen thing. But at the same time, is you want to put out good work and you want to have a good life as well. And you are one of those blessed actors who has a wonderful wife. You have a beautiful daughter. You have a life outside of being an actor and producer. So has becoming a producer, because I know you're doing a lot more. You're producing a movie with me. You're producing
Yes.
movies with your wife. Is the production or the producing role something that is allowing you to be more discerning with your choices? Is this something that you see yourself doing more and more?
I knew I wanted to somehow get involved in producing early on. And it's not something that the younger me could have just said, I'm a producer and here you go, let's make it happen. I guess I was just waiting for the right opportunity to pounce and get my foot in that door and wear that producer hat. The first opportunity I had was a movie that I did for Castle Rock. It was a baseball movie that I just love doing because I'm just a baseball aficionado, and I got this role not because of my acting ability, but because of my baseball ability. It was a movie for Castle Rock, and at the time, Billy Crystal had just done Harry Met Sally and just all these very successful films for Castle Rock, and they were casting this baseball movie, and the director Andy Scheinman told Billy, hey, I'm making my directorial debut on this baseball movie, and I want to fill it with as many great actors as possible, but I also want to fill it with actual baseball players or actors who are baseball players. We're considering this one actor, Jonathan Silverman. Do you know if he's any good? And Billy says, well, to tell you the truth, I've never really seen him act, but he's a really good baseball player. So I got this part. I spent the whole summer plus the fall in Minneapolis shooting where the Minnesota Twins play baseball. I had so much fun. They gave me all the really silly, funny dialogue. Came back home, and my agent, actually at the time he was my manager, said, so listen, Johnny, one of the heads of Castle Rock wants to have a conversation with you. And I'm like, oh God, do I suck in the movie? Did I just screw up this big movie? And now he's telling me we're cutting you out. He says, I don't know what the conversation's going to be about, but they brought me in, and it was this wonderful man who was one of the 5 Castle Rock partners named Glenn Paddock, and he was the television lead of Castle Rock, and he had a little show at the time called Seinfeld. And he said, we've been watching the dailies and the footage from this baseball movie that we're making, and we have in a first crack at NBC for the time slot just before Seinfeld or just after Seinfeld, and we would like you to star in it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even know how to do television. And why me? And anyway, so there was no project, there was no script, there was no showrunner, there was no nothing. But I said to my manager, I said, okay, this is my shot to produce something. If they really want me, tell them, whatever, I'll take a smaller fee as an actor, or I'll, cut my back end, whatever, but I want some sort of a credit. And they couldn't give me a flat out producing credit. I think they called it like production supervisor or something, because they didn't want to set a precedent, or maybe it was the network not wanting to set a precedent. But yeah, I was only 25, 26 years old, and suddenly I've got a little bit of control, and I'm not just, a person reading lines. And ever since then, it just kind of helped get me in the door. Whatever this next project was, a movie for Showtime that I was offered, I said, I want to be a producer on it. So I've had the opportunity now to produce maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 different things, and that led to directing. And acting is still my bread and butter and the thing I enjoy the most. But I really like producing, and I love directing.
I love
Hard, so
producing
challenging.
too, Jonathan. And I have to say, I'm so glad that you are explaining the producing role, because many people think the producer is just the person who's writing the checks. And
Sure.
it's not. There's so many categories of producers. And ultimately, for me, a producer is somebody who adds value to a project above and beyond their set role, right? So if somebody can help a project along, whether it's taking a pay cut, whether it's making that phone call to get an extra actor on board, or whether, vouching a project, to me,
Right.
they're just as valuable as a producer who is physically running the set, or the producer who's chasing the money. Granted, the one who gets the money is always a producer who has like the most clout on a set. But this is something that I see more and more actors doing. And I think it's great, because then it also allows you to find gems, right? That maybe
Sure.
you and your wife want to do, something that you want to direct. I know you're working a lot together with your wife. Do you guys get along when you're working together, or do you like, oh, I hate you while we're working, but we love each other in a personal life? How
Um,
does that work out?
we were
Because it's kind of
certainly
interesting.
concerned at first. I think the first thing we ever did together was just as actors. We had been dating for a couple of years at this point, and there was this wonderful show on the Stars network about a psychiatrist to the stars. And I guess I'd done the pilot, because I was very friendly with the producers. And they said, okay, so now we want your girlfriend Jen to come on and be in couples therapy. So that was the first thing we did together, and it went off so well that they asked us to come back, and I think we did 2 or 3 more as husband and wife at this point. And then we just did a bunch of movies together, and ultimately I started directing, and I was offered this one project, and I asked the producer. I said, "Hey, you don't have to pay me more. I'll cut my fee in half if you give the other half to my wife." we'd like to be a directing team. And so we co-directed this romantic comedy. And some people were telling us, well, that's going to be the end of your marriage. It's one thing to, just act together and then, you get to go home and like bitch and moan about the director. But in this case, you're going to be acting together and you are the directors. What are you doing? It's 24/7. We loved it. We just loved it and we thrived. And, we went the few hours that we were able to be offset and talk about it, we were just talking about setups for the next day and just all through the editing process and the test screenings and stuff. We really love working together. And, I always try and drag her onto my projects and somehow or another I get dragged into hers, not because it's something she's requesting. It just kind of always happens, including the series that she's starring in way on the other end of the continent in Nova Scotia. I play her douchey ex-husband on the show, but we just love working together. We have a shorthand, and we're just very fortunate.
That is so wonderful. I think also helps because you're able to be with your daughter all the time because you're always together. You're not separate.
Especially during these crazy times.
Yeah. So your kid gets to live with both her parents, who are working on the same set, and I'm sure that makes things a lot easier. This has been such a great conversation, Jonathan. I'm so inspired, and I always ask my guests. Well, I ask two questions, and then you can choose one or two, or you can do both. The first question would be, define yourself in 3 words.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm interested. How you define yourself in 3 words.
Wow. Loyal. Kind. I need a third. I know the words. There are too many. I'm trying to find just one word for it. Odd. And that's a good thing. That's
a good thing.
Yeah.
You're a beautiful kind of odd, and you're kind and loyal. That is so true. And I see that even in your friendship with Maeve. I mean, now you guys have been together forever. And I love how you define yourself. It's always interesting, right? To say, do I give myself, is this how people see me? I see you like that. So obviously you were truthful, because that's how I see you. So that was beautiful. Well, thank you for saying.
What was the second question? I don't have to answer it, but what was it?
The second question. Okay. If you were to give a word of advice about a workable life strategy that has helped you keep yourself together in your career and beyond, what would it be?
Make sure you love what you're doing, first and foremost, because there are going to be joys and successes, but there's also going to be pains and failures. But as long as you love what you're doing, it's really all that matters. That balance. And yeah, I think the advice that John Lithgow gave me 25 years ago, just kind of stay lukewarm if you can. Don't ever get to the place where you're just hugely successful, because there's a lot of not so great, collateral that happens, and you certainly don't want to, be down on your luck, desperate and a failure. So just kind of find that lukewarm.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I still think you are very well deserving of even more so than lukewarm. I don't see you as a lukewarm kind of person. I see you as a balanced and grounded person, which I think you can have in any stage of your life, whether you are like a huge star or whether you are an accomplished actor with an incredible body of work, such as yourself. And you're also a huge star in so many ways. I mean, really, what is stardom? Stardom is just being somebody that people love and admire and respect. And I think you've achieved that and accomplished that in spade, so I can't wait to be working on set with you. But most of all, thank you for coming on my show. I think my listeners are going to be super inspired. And
thank you for having me, and I can't wait to work with you. I hope we start shooting this thing soon.
Yes, I hope so too, and I hope it turns out good.
It will. It definitely will.
And if not, we're going to have fun in the process. And that's what we can always do, is have great memories. And then sometimes things suck at the beginning, and then 20 years later, they become huge hits, or vice versa. So
absolutely.
I'm hopeful to the very end. And thank you, Jonathan, for coming on my show. To all my listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe. And if you want me to bring up Jonathan's wives on my show, please DM me because I love to have her. And we may have to do a little convincing, but I'd love to have her on. I'm sure she has her own side of the story to tell. So
I'll twist her arm a little too.
please do, please do. And have everybody have a beautiful evening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay warm because we're in the thick of winter. And over and out, it's Alexia, the heart of show business.